live today in the most marketed to culture in the history of the world. Let me say that again so that you really grasp it. We live today in the most marketed to, advertised to, sold to culture in the history of the world, right here in the United States of America. And if we are going to have financial peace, two words that don't go together, we are going to have to develop a resistance to that marketing. Not that buying things is bad necessarily, but buying too many things with money we don't have to impress people we don't really like is a bad idea. We have to stop and think about this. When I got in the real estate business at 18 years old, they taught us for the real estate test, they taught us a Latin phrase. It's probably the only Latin phrase I know, so I'll brag and use the one that I know. It says caveat emptor. And caveat emptor means buyer beware. Buyer beware, because in the real estate business, typically the home that is listed, the seller is paying the commission both of the agent that has the sign in the yard and maybe of the agent that's bringing you to look at the house. And so technically speaking, in that situation, the buyer does not have representation. And so we were taught to teach the buyer to beware, because we're supposed to represent the person paying us in that situation, the seller. Now, agency laws have changed, and now we have buyer's representation for agents and other things. But generally speaking, that's where that comes from. And just when you think about marketing and people selling us stuff like crazy, that's a good idea to just say, buyer beware. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to buy things. Again, I'm not one of those financial guys who says you can't have a good time. I want you to live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. And we're going to keep doing that over and over because we want to really stick that down in our spirits. We want to sacrifice to win, and then we want to enjoy the winning. So there's nothing wrong with buying a product or enjoying a good product. There's nothing wrong with participating in buying something from a good salesman. A good salesman is fun to buy from. They have a servant's heart, and they know how to sell, and they're professional at what they do, and it makes the whole process, well, it makes the whole process pretty fun. Today, companies use every possible angle to aggressively compete for your money. The company that is not sophisticated in their marketing, the company that is not aggressive in their marketing, the company that does not have a marketing budget generally doesn't stay open. Competition is too fierce for the consumer dollar. You know, all you got to do is walk down the mall to see this. You got 63 stores selling the same stuff. And competition is too fierce to get your dollars, your precious dollars, to engage you. And they are very good at what they do.
Paging Carl. Carl, you got a call on line 4. Carl, line 4.
Hey, how you doing today? Yeah, good to see you. Come here a second. I want you to have a seat in this car and smell that fine Corinthian leather. Ah, it's lovely. It's got Bluetooth, and it also has a surround sound with an iPod dock. You do have an iPod, don't you? Oh, hey, listen to this. Listen. 0% for the first 2 weeks, and it adjusts monthly after that, okay? You'll probably want to get the full roadside coverage on this deal. Oh, and this little rain sensing wipers, one of those, well, of course, it's got the converters. It's got the twin ace ply. It also has wheel locks, so you don't lose these custom. Either way, it's a win-win situation. Stop. I'm not going to do this to you. I knew it the second you walked up. I said, I like this person. I want to give you the insider deal, okay? Now, I don't know if I can make this happen because I need to get manager approval on this deal, but I'm going to do my very best, okay? You just hang on, sit tight, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. I cannot believe the manager just approved this deal. This is unbelievable. I am sure that you are aware that all the cell phone companies are battling to get their phones installed in new cars. Now, currently, the cell phone companies are underwriting our car leases. Now, I checked with your cell phone provider, and we can add this car lease to your current phone contract. Here's how it works, okay? Now, anywhere you drive during the day counts toward your base miles. But if you go over your mileage in any given month, the rates will double. Now, you can drive anywhere you want to between the hours of 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. on nights and weekends, as long as you're going to see someone that's on your plan. Okay? Now, if you drive long distances, long distance rates will apply. Now, the best part about this deal is that rollover miles will be included in your first year. What do you think about that? Huh? No. What? Wait. No. Hey, we'll throw in the undercoating. Yeah. And the overcoating. And a free cell phone.
American Demographics says that in 1971, the average American had 560 advertisements flashed in front of their face in a given day. Today, according to the book Affluenza, which is a great book, by the way, that guy says in studies he's done that it's between 3,000 and 4,000 advertisements a day that you and I are having flashed in front of our faces. This stuff is a real deal. And a child born today will see over 1 million advertisements before their death. That's bizarre. And that stuff works. That's why they do it. They don't do it because it doesn't work. Why would you spend millions and billions of dollars on something that did not have an effect? When you advertise a certain way and you see results, you will advertise and spend those dollars again. That's just good business. And it's not evil. I'm not mad at these companies. But you and I need to be aware, to beware as consumers. A Harvard study found that for every hour of television per week you watch, you average spending an extra $200 a year. There's a direct connection with the number of hours you spend in front of the tube and your spending. Why? Because there's a lot of advertisements on there. Plus, they show these families that seem to have everything that my family doesn't have. And we think we need to go get it, and we need to go get it right now. Sad thing is this right now, advertising directed at children, according to the New American Dream study, this year, advertising directed specifically at children, $15 billion will be spent. They're teaching our kids consumerism. Again, I don't think this is evil. I'm not paranoid about it, but I am trying to sound a horn and say, wake up! We can't live like this and win. So, what are we going to do? Well, we have to be aware of stuff. I mean, it's sophisticated. The Sony stores now are putting certain scents in the air when you go in at different times of the day. If it's a busy time of day, to relax you a little bit, and other times of the day to pep you up a little bit. You go in Bloomingdale's, different departments have different scents now. You go in the baby department, you'll probably smell a little baby powder in the air. Makes you kind of feel like babies are there. And just buying stuff and buying stuff and buying stuff and buying stuff and buying stuff. So what we've got to do is we have to identify the enemies of our financial peace in this process. And they are enemies. They're not enemies in the sense that they're evil or somehow we have to do battle with them, but we have to be aware of the techniques and the processes these companies are using, and when we are, then we're more wise as consumers. The first of these is personal selling. Oh, we are good at selling in this culture, and I'm a good salesman. I sell ideas for a living now, but I've been selling all my life. I grew up in a salesman's household, and I love salespeople. I really enjoy buying from a good salesperson, and I really can't stand being around an amateur that just, rubs you the wrong way. They're just abrasive. I don't want to be near these guys. But people who know how to sell, well, they spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands and thousands and thousands of man hours sitting in a classroom learning how to talk to you in a certain way, to serve you, to assist you in your decision to buy their stuff. Zig Ziglar's brother Judge wrote a book years ago. He said the title of it was Timid Salesmen Have Skinny Kids. If you're going to be good, you better be good at it. It's not a game. The car salesman that is unprofessional and you walk up and you ask a question about a car and the car salesman just answers the question, now this gal will be out of the business in a little while. We're taught the very first thing in Salesmanship 101 is you never answer a question except with another question. Oh, do you have this Ford Taurus in blue? Well, tell me, were you looking for a sport version or Possibly the 4-door for the family. Tell me about your situation. Well, we're thinking maybe the 4-door. So is safety a big concern, or are you more looking at gas mileage or performance? And you begin to answer questions with questions, and every time there's another answer to the question, there's one more item on the order blank that has begun to be filled out. Do you want the one with 4 wheels? And when we finish filling it out, voila, we don't happen to have that here, but we can get it for you. We'll have it here by this afternoon. So we can go ahead and do the paperwork. You can drive the green one. We'll have the blue one delivered, and it'll be here this afternoon by the time we get the paperwork done anyway. So we'll test drive this one, but just think blue while you're driving green. And they don't even have to have it on their lot. They'll have it from a dealer across town on a cross-purchase agreement, and it'll be there in no time. And that's how the business works. And the National Auto Dealers Association knows that you won't be back. As a matter of fact, they do studies on be-backs. When we're on the car lot, we say, we're looking and we test drive and we're starting to bite. You're starting to enter into the sales process, and then you say, well, we're just looking around. We'll be back. In the car business, they call those be-backs. You won't be back. 88% of the time you don't return, because by the time you're test driving, you have car fever. You will purchase a car within 72 hours on average. And you will buy it somewhere within that period of time, and you will not do it in a second decision process. 88% of the time, you won't be back. And the salesmen know this in the business. They're trained. You don't even know this about you. But they know what's going on, and so they've tried everything, and you're still leaving thinking you're going to be back, and you look down and there's something around your ankle, and it's the salesman. Because they know they're professionals at what they do. It can't be called a game when you enter into the arena of purchasing something in America today. The second thing is financing. They use money and easy payments as a marketing tool, don't they? Oh, don't think about how much, just think about how much down and how much a month. And no interest. It's all free. Everything's free. We're just going to give it to you just because we love you. Right.
Travis sends me an email. He's 21 years old in college. He says, should I take advantage of 0% interest? Spoken like a broke college student wanting to buy something you can't afford, Travis. No, you don't want to take advantage of 0%. That really tells me, dude, that you have no money. That's what it tells me, and you have something you want. You don't take advantage of 0% interest. It takes advantage of you. 88% of the people that take out 90 days, same as cash, don't pay it off in 90 days, Travis. What that means is they backcharge you through the whole contract at their ridiculous rip-off finance company rate, 24%, 28%, 38%, and that's basically kicking your butt for being so dumb to have bought something that you really couldn't afford. Let me tell you how you can tell if you can afford something. If you have the cash to pay for it. That's when you know that you can possibly afford it. Hope that helps you, man. This is the Dave Ramsey Show.
And so you really have to be careful about this. The latest one, of course, that's been a big deal, huge marketing plus, has revitalized an entire industry. 0% car interest. Everybody went and bought a new car all of a sudden, and the car market was dying. And it drew people in like a moth into a flame, 0% debt. Now, C&W Market Research has found that only 1/3 of car buyers that hit the lot looking for a 0% interest deal qualify. And 91% of car buyers finance their new cars. So what this tells us is almost everyone finances their car when they hit a new car lot, and they go in looking for the 0, and 2 out of 3 times they don't get the 0, they get transferred off and are paying interest. But by then they're so far into the buying process that we emotionally don't put on the brakes, and we drive home with leather's toxic smell. And we feel good now because we got a new car. And we got sucked right in because, Dave, 0 interest. Who can beat 0 interest? I can beat 0 interest. If a car, as we've discussed in the debt lesson, is losing 70% of its value in the first 4 years, that's not 0%. It's going down in value like a rock. That's where Chevy got that, like a rock. Oh, if you think I'm picking on Chevy, it's found on the road depreciated for Ford, okay? They're all going down in value. There are no exceptions to that. That's how it works. Financing is a marketing tool.
cannot predict the future perfectly. You may be ill. Someone in your family may have a car wreck and you're not able to work and get the rest of the money together. Then you've gotten caught in this trap of payments. You cannot predict the future. I'm not negative. I'm just 100% sure you don't know what's coming. So when you have the money, then you buy the stuff. If you don't have the money, don't buy the stuff.
Americans tend to spend more money than they have for a few reasons. Number one is that they're trying to maintain a lifestyle that they really can't afford. They see people all around them with new cars and other expensive items, and they think they might need to have those things too, even if they don't have the cash. So they end up using a credit card or a loan to pay for things that they can't afford. The next reason that they do it is to try to self-gratify. They want to feel good about themselves, so they end up using credit cards to buy things. You have to tell yourself no. You're going to save up for it and you're going to pay cash for it. When you use debt to buy things, it brings guilt as well as a payment. So save up and pay cash because you don't want to feel bad. You don't want to feel guilty about buying that item. If you save up for it and buy it, you're going to feel good about it. If you want to win with money and build wealth, you've got to live on less than you make. New things that come wrapped up in debt payments will not bring you happiness.
Of course, the straight-up marketing stuff like television, radio, the internet, other media. And of course, that's where those of us in the business, I'm in the radio business, we use repetition. Well, Dave, this stuff doesn't work on me. I'm way too smart. I'm sophisticated. I know what they're doing. It doesn't have any effect on me. All right, let's get a little help here then. Help me with this. Bye-bye, Miss American. Bye. Drove my Chevy to the levee. But the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and shame on you. Don McLean, Miss American Pie, 1972.
We are constantly bombarded by marketing ads through TV, radio, the internet, and billboards. We hear slogans and jingles, and before long, we're hooked. That's because repetition is a powerful thing. Literally, all a company has to do is make sure their line is repeated over and over again. That way, when we need or want a particular item, we think of their brand. Don't believe me? See if you recognize any of these. Taste the rainbow. Think outside the bun. It melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Just do it. You probably know all of those. That's because advertising and repetition is extremely effective.
Here's the oldest, and everybody can do it. Still being used today, originated in 1954. Melts in your mouth. Not in your hand. And who is it? Yes. Repetition doesn't work, does it? Marketing has no effect, does it? Everyone in here can sing that like it's a song. Absolutely incredible. Apparently those ad dollars are paying off. I saw a study the other day that said the average household now has more televisions than people. Kind of a scary thought if you think through the implications of this. Somewhere there are some dogs and cats being entertained. When it comes to marketing, they also use product positioning. Now, product positioning is a big deal. There's all kinds of aspects to this. One is brand recognition. Brand recognition is where they position a product in your mind as associated with a certain value. For instance, years ago, the first time that the generic products started hitting the market, there was a big ketchup war because your local grocery store would slap a generic brand on a ketchup bottle and put it on the shelf cheaper than Hunt's or Heinz. And I remember there was a commercial, some of you remember it 15, 20 years ago, where they would show the Hunt's or the Heinz ketchup, and it was thick and rich. And the generic ketchup was thin and runny and made in the same factory. Mercedes has done such a good job as positioning themselves in the consumer's mind as holding its value. Mercedes hold their value. You ought to look at the numbers if you think that's true. As a matter of fact, an interesting thing happened that didn't work in marketing was Cadillac back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, found that Cadillacs of a $50,000 level of Cadillac was holding its value statistically better than a corresponding Mercedes. When Cadillac studied this, knew it was true, but in the consumer's mind, a Cadillac went down and a Mercedes was just steady. Mercedes had planted that as a brand position in our minds. Cadillac spent $100 million buying advertisements trying to teach the consumer that it wasn't true, and the ad campaign was a flop. Mercedes was so entrenched in the consumer psyche with the thing that holds its value, they'd done such a good job that everyone didn't believe the Cadillac ads. And they were true. At that period of time, I don't know what it is today, but at that period of time, Cadillac did hold its thing. We've got a new one going on. If you use Macs instead of using a PC, you're cool. PC people like me that don't use Macs can't stand the things. Don't want an Apple on my stuff. I'm a nerd. I'm undernourished. I don't know what's going on. My intellect hasn't kept up. But you people with spike hair, boy, you're cool. You're cool. You got it all together because you use an Apple. They've done a great job with that one. That is a fabulous marketing campaign. The iPod marketing campaign has been fabulous with those guys. They've associated their entire brand with coolness. Their entire brand is about you are cool if you're using their stuff. Young people, the younger the demographic, the more likely you are to go that direction. The older you are, the less you care about being cool. It's very interesting stuff. This stuff works. They spend a lot of money on it. Bottled water. I got a friend of mine that's very wealthy. He says, he thinks, you know, how some people call themselves a wine snob. He says he's a water snob. He spends money for this expensive water, and he can tell the difference. No, he can't. I was getting ready to be on 2020 not long ago with John Stossel, and so to get ready to go meet John Stossel and hang out with him, I read a couple of his books. And it was really interesting. I wrote down the stuff out of one of the chapters because he's got that stuff, you know, he does where he studies consumer myths, right? And he did the bottled water myth. He got all the expensive waters out, and he got New York tap water. New York City tap water out. He took it all to a microbiologist. The microbiologist went through every one of them. He said there wasn't spit difference in them. They were exactly the same. Maybe a little more fluoride in the tap water. That was it, which would be good for your teeth anyway. He says basically the same. And then they did blind taste test, and the most expensive water came in the worst. New York tap water came in third consistently. New York City tap water. And the cheap generic water, what are we saying? The cheaper generic water kept winning the taste test. My wife and I not long ago were in Oslo, Norway, and we really were cracking up. The guide took us into this store, and they had this bottled water in there. Of course, Oslo, Norway is up near the Arctic Circle, right? And so they've got this bottled water from glaciers. It's glacier water. Ooh. It says this water is 6 million years old. Turned it around, and on the back it said, used by September 30th. Is it any wonder that Evian spelled backwards is naive?
Sometimes we get stuck on the idea of being cool, of having the cool clothes or driving the cool car, or maybe having a lot of friends on the cool social media website. But I learned a lesson about cool a few years ago, and it surprised me, and I think it's going to surprise you too. You see, I was living in Boston at the time, and I was what they call a cool hunter. My job was to figure out what are the trends in the city. What are people interested in? What are the words they're saying, or the stuff they're buying, or the places they're going? What's the cool restaurant? And so my job was to kind of scour the city and find things that were cool. And one day I had a new assignment. They wanted me to come up with 5 slang words. 5 phrases that people were saying on the streets, 5 new phrases in Boston. And then I would package those up. I'd write a little report up, maybe a page or 2, and then I'd send it to the company I worked for. And then they'd repackage it and they'd sell it to clothes manufacturers or TV stations or movie studios. And they'd say, this is what teenagers care about. We've studied the country. Here's what they like. And so that day I worked on it, and I went on the subway, and I listened to conversations, and I came up with 4 words that I really thought people were using, but I needed one more. And so that night I was sitting at my desk, and I had an aloe plant in the corner, that cactus that grows with the thick leaves, and I started to think, I need another word. I'm stuck. I need another word, and then it hit me. Aloe. I'll just tell them aloe's a word that people in Boston say, and I'll say, well, it means cool and refreshing. And I needed an example sentence. So I said, that girl has mad aloe. And then I emailed the report in. And I thought for sure they were going to laugh at me. That they'd respond and go, seriously? Stop making up these words. Nobody says aloe. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I just made that up. It was from my desk. It was a plant. And about a week later, they sent out the results of these reports. You see, they have 10,000 trend hunters around the world. And they sent out this report and they said, of all the words, there is one that you need to know. Wherever you live, this is the word that's going to be huge next season. Every teenager is going to be saying this. Can you guess what word they picked? Aloe. They even had my example sentence. That girl has mad aloe. And I realized that moment that cool is fictional. It's just made up. I mean, have you and your friends ever said that word aloe at school? Have you ever been like, my locker's feeling aloe today. Oh, that test was so not aloe. No, of course not. Why haven't you? Because cool is fake. It's fictional. It's made up. So as you walk through your day, as you walk through your year, and you get distracted by other people's definition of cool, don't fall for that. You get to determine in your own life, in your own heart, what's really cool. You get to define your own aloe. So don't fall for that trap. You are the definition of cool.
And some of these ads have an unintended effect. They don't accomplish their purpose, do they? One of those examples, and it's kind of a little bit of the laughing stock of the ad world, is the Aflac duck. Everybody goes, Aflac, Aflac, and has no idea what the company does. There was another one that went broke. Aflac's open, obviously, but another one that went broke was pets.com. They had this really cool dog sock puppet. The dog sock puppet became like a cult following. As a matter of fact, he got other gigs on other commercials after pet.com went broke. The dog sock puppet was so effective that nobody had any idea what he was talking about. So sometimes this stuff doesn't work. Color matters when you're doing product positioning. Many years ago, when I first got in the real estate business at 18 years old, I worked for a company called ERA, Electronic Realtor Associates. And what they told us at that time was that the ugly orange on those signs, looks like the cones when you're going through traffic. You know the signs I'm talking about, was developed by a company called the Color College to create more possible reaction in your peripheral vision. Because ugly orange picks up in your peripheral vision more often than maybe a local real estate agent who didn't think when they put sign colors together, and they kind of put together sign colors that looked like trees, rocks, and grass. So their sign blends in. But if you're driving by and you get that sign, and signs have a lot to do with selling residential real estate, you got to see the sign. If you see that sign, that head turns, whoa, that's the one. But if you never see the sign because it blends in, it's a big deal. So right after ugly orange came out ugly yellow, Century 21. And they know it's ugly. They don't care. It works. And color is studied. Color is studied in packaging to follow your eye movement when you're looking at packaging. How do you work the package with your eyes? When you're looking at other things like shelf position, that's another. Everybody knows about shelf position, don't we? I mean, when you walk in, Wrigley's Gum figured this out. I was out in Phoenix, Arizona, riding around with a friend of mine out there that's very wealthy, in the very wealthy end of town. He pointed up the wealthiest house in the wealthy end of town. He said, that's the Wrigley Mansion. Because they put little sticks of gum at the impulse point, the first people to ever do that in the grocery store. They caught on to shelf position. And nowadays in a grocery store or in a bookstore or in other things, you think those books on the front are necessarily the best? No. If I want my book on the front, I pay to put my book on the front. It's a bought shelf position. You want your Oreos on a shelf, you're going to pay, if you're Nabisco, to get the Oreo on a shelf in a certain place especially. And you don't want to be down here. unless you're selling to the little kids. You want to be right up in here at eye level, and then you're creating color and process to get the attention so that we impulse on the Oreo. And then they lay, you know, Wall Street Journal did a whole study of how they have the cameras up in the grocery stores. Grocery stores are some of the best merchandisers there are. And the cameras up are not to watch to see who's shoplifting a bag of Fig Newtons, okay? The cameras are studying how you walk the store. How do you work the store? How's your mind work? Because in the old days, in the 50s and 60s, you'd put the meat and the milk and the bread at the back. It was a simple idea. Those were basics. And to get to those, you had to walk past everything. And then you'd get that stuff, and they were hoping that you'd get something as you went out. Now they're more sophisticated than that. That stuff's still back there, but they've even tried all kinds of different designs of aisles, and you feel like a rat stuck in a labyrinth, don't you? Because they're making you work this store to let me out. They're walking you past as much product as possible because that causes sales. They don't kid around about this stuff. It's very, very, very real. I mean, if you go out there and you're going through the hard labor of pumping your gas, and it's a hot August day, and things are bad. So now I'm going to go inside and pay because the pay at the pump thing's not working for some reason. Now I'm aggravated, and I'm hot. And I walk in, and there's one of these right in the middle of the floor. Now, it's very carefully designed in the floor plan on a chain set of markets. A local market may or may not be sophisticated. But a chain set of markets has an exact floor plan to put that thing in the iced cooler in the exact right spot. The exact right spot is not too much in the way, because if it's too much in the way, I'm already ticked now, I'm offended. Right? If it's not enough in the way, I never see it, do I? So it's got to be right here so that I'm a little hot, I'm a little bit ready for some refreshment. Oh, there it is. Shelf position, the location in the floor plan. It's not an accident. And I walk in and I pick up a Mountain Dew, and a piece of ice slides off the side and drops. And as I do, in my subconscious, I go off a tire swing into a creek. Walk up to the register and pay for this thing what I could have bought a case of them across the street for. This is not a game, is it? These guys are really, really good at what they do. Now today, I might not do a Mountain Dew, but I'd probably get me some good generic water, right? I tell you. Packaging is interesting too, isn't it? The way they package stuff, the design, the look and the feel of the package. All of these things are designed to have an impact on you. You have to be aware of it. Do you have to be freaked out about it and all paranoid and they're out to get us? No, they'll come get you with the butterfly net. That's not the idea. But they are very sophisticated, so we as consumers should at least be aware, shouldn't we? We should at least beware.